Welcome to In the Community with Tiffany K.
And we're back with In the Community. I'm Tiffany K. And today I already said it before, I have a legend with me in the studio.
Yeah.
I have CEO and producing artistic director of Riverside Center for the Performing Arts, Patrick Ahearn. Patrick, how are you?
I am great, and I'm even better being with you this morning here on the
Thank you
show.
so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
I'm excited because theater is one of my passions personally. So anytime I get to have theater on the show, I get very excited about it.
I like that.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to nonprofits.
Well,
so we're going to get into
the right
it.
Combination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. But Patrick, I said legend because I already know your story. But I would love for you to give just a little bit of background of your theater experience and how you got into this role of producing artistic director.
Sure. I'm going to try to do a Cliff Notes version. I was set out to do what you're doing. I went to Syracuse University. I was a broadcast journalism major, and I wanted to be, an Anderson Cooper or one of those kind of guys. And while I was in college at Syracuse, I had a professor who suggested that I take a voice lesson with one of the music department teachers because it would enhance the diction, the support, the speaking for anything on camera as far as broadcasting was concerned. My vocal teacher discovered I had a voice. And which, I guess if you want to be in good voice and want to be on the radio, I guess there's some kind of mechanism that allows you to sing too.
I think so.
And therefore it all started. And while I was in college, it was a hobby. I did some summer stock stuff. I did some local production companies in Syracuse. And then when I graduated from Syracuse, I took a little time to decide what I wanted to do, and unbeknownst to me, I started auditioning for shows. And I was in the D.C. area. My parents had relocated from central New York down in this area, Fredericksburg, and while I was visiting, I went to an audition for a dinner theater over in the Rockville, Maryland.
Okay.
And I did a production of My Fair Lady. I was Freddie. I sang On the Street Where You Live. Somebody saw me in that production and said, we're doing a pre-Broadway run of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at Ford's Theater in D.C., and we would like you to audition. And I said, well, I just do this for fun, Long story short, I was cast. And I did the show at Ford's Theater for almost a year. And then I was one of three that was asked to go to New York with the show. And there it goes. And that was back in the early 80s. And it finally, I worked steadily. I still was in my 20s and got into my 30s and actually late 20s when I got the original Broadway cast of Les Mis.
Yes.
And that was when I said, okay.
You're like,
I think this is what I'm doing.
This seems to be working out for me a little bit.
At least for a good long while. And I had parents that were very supportive. And I had a career in New York for, 30 plus years.
That's amazing.
Got to do, Les Mis and Joseph and the Phantom of the Opera and Chicago and The King and I, and met many, many great people, had incredible people looking out for me and guiding me. I did 2 CDs that were released nationally of Broadway kind of stuff. And I came down to this area when my parents passed back in the early 2000s, and my mother had been to Riverside.
Oh, okay.
When it had opened. I wanted to honor her and go and see what it was all about. Called the gentleman that ran the place at the time, Ron Wayman, and he was like, oh my God, I know who you are. And so I went over and we struck up a nice relationship. And back in 2006, I decided to do a production of The Music Man for him. It was a good time for me to come home. My sister lives in Spotsylvania, not too far from here.
Nice.
And I thought it would be nice to spend some time with them, and I did the show at Riverside, and that started the relationship with Riverside.
Oh, that's amazing.
And directed a couple of productions for them, and then in 2010, I believe it was, 2009, 2010, they were making some big changes. And they said, would you consider coming on board? And, I was still performing quite a bit. And, but I thought to myself, how many opportunities present themselves without having a background as on the other side of the table, or
Right.
being a producer or an artistic director. And I consulted with friends that I trusted and said, what do you think? And they said, you'll kick yourself if you don't, give it a try.
Yeah.
So I had owned my place in New York, and I kept it for a while.
Okay.
I took the job down here, and back in 2014, Mr. Wayman passed away, and pretty much it was me at the helm.
History's made.
So here I am, and
Yeah.
happily, I love this area. I think it's beautiful. I love Fredericksburg and Stafford and Spotsy, and I love the fact that this region loves what we're doing at Riverside. They've been very supportive. We've increased our audience size almost double in the amount of time that I've been here.
That's amazing.
People appreciate quality theater. They are willing to take chances and see some new things with us, and so here I am.
A living legend.
I'm
in my
living
opinion.
in Fredericksburg, Virginia now. And,
I love that story though, because I knew from Les Mis. Like I said, I'm
Yeah.
a big theater fan.
Yeah.
Grew up as a competitive dancer. Grew
Yeah.
up doing theater and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why I knew that. But I love that story to come here because you always wonder, where does it lead?
Yeah,
Where does it lead after?
Exactly. And I think as a performer, you have to. Matter of fact, I just had a friend who was in town 2 weeks ago. He sang with the Fredericksburg Symphony. He was one of the 3 people they brought in from New York, and
Okay.
we had done Les Mis together.
Yes.
He had also done the Phantom of the Opera, and we hadn't seen each other in probably about 20 years.
Wow.
And he is still doing the performing circuit and stuff like that. And I took him over to Riverside, showed him around town, brought him to my house, and he said, "Oh my God, I want your life."
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, it's interesting because I made a conscious decision at a certain point in my life that what was going to be the next phase, because you get to a point where you want to settle down. Even though I lived in New York, if you weren't doing a Broadway show, you were doing a national tour of a show, and you were constantly packing a suitcase and going on the road. And that's great when you're 20s, your 30s, your 40s. And then you think, I don't know if I want to do this when I get to be 50, and so on and so forth. So this presented itself. And I think, there's always, I always say, let the good Lord do the driving. And I think he led me here, and along with my mom probably. But so it's great. It's great to be here, and it's nice to know that people think, what a great decision you made.
Yeah, I think so as well. We're very happy to have you here.
And I
very
love
excited.
mentoring.
Yes.
That's the other thing. You go through a career, and you've been prepped and led by some wonderful people. It's almost time to give back.
Yep.
And I love being able to give people opportunities at Riverside, guide them into doing other things. We have had people at Riverside who've gone on to do bigger things, and that's great.
Yeah.
And I love producing things at Riverside that can inspire the community. That I like being that place for people to be able to get away from it all, congregate with 400 people, and enjoy something that's a great experience.
That's giving me chills. I know you just saw me kind of twitch a little bit, but that's one of the things I love about theater. So I
There's nothing
completely
like
agree.
it.
Oh,
There's
yes.
nothing like it.
Well, I'm speaking with Patrick, the CEO and producing artistic director of Riverside Center for the Performing Arts. Now, speaking of Riverside, it just became a nonprofit.
We did. We officially turned over in January. It is something that I have been really pushing for a good 10 years. Having been in the theater for so many years myself, having worked at so many regional theaters, the majority of your professional regional theaters in this country are nonprofit. Because it's just the cost associated with producing shows. I mean, at Riverside, what we bring in at the box office doesn't even represent probably 50% of what it costs to run the building and the productions. And so you come to a point where you say, how do we sustain? How do we stay here for we've been here 26 years.
Yep.
Like to be here 26 more years.
Mm-hmm.
And so you find a way that you can be able to be a nonprofit who can apply for grants, who can reach out for sponsorships, donations, patron donations, capital funding campaigns, all of those kinds of things. You can't do it as a for-profit. And the Riverside was Riverside Center, LLC, as a dinner theater for many years.
Yes.
We changed the name to Riverside Center for the Performing Arts probably 6 or 7 years ago. And my whole approach with that is, and I say this with respect, dinner theater's great.
Right.
But there are not many dinner theaters left in the country.
That's true.
And dinner theater can sometimes get a bad rap because it's never been the best. It's always been, okay, a decent show and some decent food, and it's more of an experience rather than going to see a knockout show.
Right.
And what I wanted to be at Riverside was a terrific professional regional theater. Oh, and then we'll give you the convenience if you'd like to eat there too. We'll provide you with some food rather than be the dinner theater. Experience.
Yeah.
And so we made that name change, and we came to a place where with the pandemic, we were very fortunate. We stayed relevant. We tried to do things that we could do, but that's when it really got serious. And I said, you know what? We have to seriously consider this now. And I think one of the things that opened people's eyes was we were granted, we were part of the Shuttered Venue Grant, which was part of the Save the Stages bill that Congress put through. And Riverside was awarded $2.2 million.
Wow.
And if we hadn't got everything to sync up in that right period of time, we probably wouldn't have gotten that grant.
Wow.
And it got us through. And it really put us in a great place, unlike many professional regional theaters in this country who've either had to close or have had to cut back on their programming, cut staff. And so I pushed it again. I said, we really need to do this. And with Riverside, it was started with a group of investors. There were probably 60 plus investors when it was initially offered out there for investment.
Right.
And so therefore the investors are, well, wait a minute, you're going to go nonprofit. What happens to our investment? And so what the suggestion was and what we have done is the LLC still remains.
Okay.
And it retains the property and the building, which is the real value.
Right.
And the theater operations, which is Riverside Center for the Performing Arts, has now become the 501c3. So just the theater operations. Everything else is still held by investors. And the stronger we get and the more money we raise, matter of fact, we're very close to beginning to start to pay off the investors. And that's our plan, is to pay the investors off. And once the investors are bought out, then the nonprofit acquires the building and the land as well. So, but awesome. it allows us as a nonprofit 501c3 theater operations to begin that process of raising money and becoming solvent and knowing that we can sustain what we're doing and do these great shows that we plan. So
in a way, it all worked out at just the right timing.
It did.
Yeah.
I would have preferred that people listened a little sooner. And I think of where would we be now if we had already been able to raise that money. But I think there were a lot of people that, don't know a lot about the theater business that may have invested in the theater.
Correct.
And I understand their concerns.
Yeah.
I understand, hey, I invested $25,000, $50,000, $200,000. That's my money.
Yep.
And it's either got to come back to me in some form or something has my investment has to be protected.
Right.
And so what we have done is we're protecting the investors and we're carrying on as a strong theater company.
And I think that was a great match.
I think so.
I really do.
I really do. It's not easy.
Right.
We were able to accomplish the vote from the LLC because we had to have that permission to do it. Was overwhelming, and that was just a little over a year ago when we took the vote. So the fact that we are running as a
Yeah.
501c3 nonprofit now is pretty
That's amazing.
pretty incredible.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on that.
Thank
I
you.
love hearing
Thank you.
that.
Yeah.
And you know, I want to go back for a second, because you were talking about dinner theater, right? And how Riverside is a fantastic show. Oh, and here's dinner too, if you would like it.
Exactly.
So can we talk a little bit about that? What makes it unique for those patrons who are coming to the show for that dinner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for convenience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for the longest time, I think there were people that I would run into in the city or in the area, and I would tell them I worked at Riverside, and sometimes you'd get, "What's that?" Because believe it or not, there's still people who don't know that we're here.
Yeah.
For the ones that knew about it, they said, "Oh, yeah, we know about that. We hear a lot about it." And I said, "Have you been?" "No. We just don't have the time, because that's you've got to have the dinner, you've got to have the show. It's a long period of time."
Right.
And I said, "Well, you can go and just see the show." And there were a lot of people that were not aware of that. So what I like to think of it from a meal standpoint, and also from having a bar and being able to sell drinks, liquor, is we can be there for people who like the traditional dinner theater experience. You come in at 2 hours before the show starts. You have a nice meal. We have a really great chef right now, Chris Henshaw, who does some really great meals. So they're getting your not standard dinner theater fare, which sometimes can be like a sloppy buffet.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're getting a really nice meal. You're getting a salad and all that, the dessert, and there's drinks there to have too. If you don't want to do that, and you say on a Friday night, the show starts at 7:30, the meal service starts at 5:30. But say, well, I'd like to see the show. What if I get there at 6:30, 6:45? Can I get a drink? Can I get an appetizer? You can. So we're there for everybody.
That's amazing.
As long as you get there, there's a certain cutoff time for you to get either table service or going to the bar.
Right.
Because some of the actors are the servers, so they have to have a half an hour to get ready to do the show from doing that service too. But I think that's what's expanded our audience. I think that we're pulling in a lot of people that are getting out of work on a Friday, and they figure, well, this is, it's the weekend. We're going to relax. Let's go see a show.
Yep.
Let's get a drink, And so I think we can be pretty much anything when it comes to food service and drinks that our public would like us to be.
Yeah, and it doesn't limit, right? As you said, if you're getting out of work at 5, a lot of times, if dinner started at 5, you're not going to make it, then you miss the show. So now it's nice because you can come when you need to.
Exactly.
Obviously before the show, but come when you need to. Get some food if you want it. If you don't, you just want to see a show, that's awesome too.
There you go.
I love that.
Yeah, and we're thinking of ways as we transform the space. One of my long-range goals is to convert the theater space into just a theater.
Okay.
And that, if you take the tables out that need to be there for dinner service, that theater easily becomes 900 seats.
Oh, wow.
Which allows us to do many more things. We could even bring in a small national tour of a Broadway show.
Oh, that's amazing.
We can bring in some top headliners to perform concerts and stuff like that. We can even be there for, there's a lot of organizations in the area that are looking for a great space with great sound to do things. And we can be there for those people too, if we're really, truly the performing arts center for the region. And so that's the goal. And then anybody that still wants to have meals and stuff, on our other side of the building is a very large event center. Okay. And we could use that and be dynamic and switch the space around, and we could use that as like a bistro space. So if people want to come, they eat over on that side, and then they go over to the theater for the show. Wow. So I'm always thinking.
I was going to say, I love those plans for the future.
Yeah.
There's just so much that you can do. The sky's the limit going forward. And that was going to be one of my questions anyways, was like, where do you see Riverside in the next 5 years? But you've already explained where you see it. You know?
I want to be, I want to continue to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
I want to continue to bring in great talent, some celebrity talent like we have with Sally Struthers and Joyce DeWitt. We had Andrea McCardle who was the original Annie, do 42nd Street for us. I want to continue to do that. I want to continue to do quality theater, which is not always doing a musical, but sometimes doing a play. We're pretty close to having the rights to do To Kill a Mockingbird next season. And I think that's a great thing to do for the public, for schools that learn about that in their classes. And so, yeah, I want to be recognized nationally. We're starting to get that attention. The amount of people that audition for us from all over the country because they've heard from other people that have worked from us outside the area. Oh my God, what a great place. And just right now doing Wizard of Oz, we went another step further, and it's a very immersive production. So we've brought the stage way out and onto the floor. So it's almost as if the audience feels they're right in that world. Wow. And so trying new things, that's what I want to continue to do. And, who knows? I always shoot big. Maybe we could win the Regional Theater Tony Award one year if we continue to grow and be strong for this area.
I feel like with you at the helm, we'll definitely do so. I do believe that.
Well, I want what's best for the community. I want what's best for the people that work for us. Yep. I want them to get good experience, good exposure. I want them to be proud of what they're doing at Riverside. Yeah.
So many questions popping up in my head.
Yeah.
We have Patrick here, CEO and producing artistic director of Riverside Center for the Performing Arts. I do want to go back a second because you were talking about the different shows we have coming up. Wizard of Oz. And we got a couple other ones. You kind of mentioned some in 2025 that you may get the rights to. But how do you go into choosing those shows? What is the process of that?
I
know it's a process.
It's almost a job unto itself.
Okay.
The most important thing is, and I truly believe this, and I say this all the time, listen to your audience. Listen to your patrons. No matter what it comes to, I always say to people, I want you to know who I am because I want you to be able to reach out to me. You might have a great suggestion. There might be something that happened while you were in our space that I need to know about so we can fix it for the next time. And I need to know the shows that you'd like to see, And so I listen to the audience. I speak to my colleagues at Riverside. My associate producing artistic director, Carson Eubank, who's also our music supervisor, is a brilliant young man. We collaborate and we talk about it. I talk to the departments. The scene shop department, my production manager, my technical director, because sometimes you may want to do all these great shows, but you want to make sure you're not killing people, with, building costumes and sets and So it's sort of a collaborative discussion, and then I have a short list of about 20 to 30 shows that and then it's applying for the rights.
Yes.
And playing the politics of how do I get this?
Yes.
And being ahead of the game, knowing some of the hot shows, when they might come up for a chance to get the rights and getting in the ear of the licensing company and your representative there to say, I want to do this, I want to do that,
Right.
And then using your own clout, I remember when we first did Chicago at Riverside, I had done the show.
Yep.
So when we got denied on the rights, I was able to make a phone call and get it changed for us through the producers. So,
of course.
So it's all those things combined, and also wanting to pepper in. I truly want to do at least one straight piece of theater a year, meaning a play with no music. Well, it may be incidental music, but because I think there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily want to go see a show that all of a sudden they burst out into song.
Exactly.
And they'd like to see a good drama, or they'd like to see a murder mystery, So we want to be able to do that as well.
I love that. And, you were saying you have a little short list. Is there any dream show you would ever love to do for Riverside?
Dream shows. Well, yeah, I mean, any of the biggies, we just did Jersey Boys.
Yep.
I was trying to get that for the longest time. So many people ask about Wicked.
Yep.
I mean, we're doing The Wizard of Oz now, but that would be certainly something I'd love to get. beautiful. The Carole King musical was a dream show
Yes.
for me, and we've got that coming up in the fall.
Yep.
There are shows that I've always wanted to do, like Sweeney Todd.
Oh.
I think that will be something we will take on at some point. One of my all-time favorite shows, it's not well known, is a show called Nine, which is a musical based on Fellini's 8½, the movie.
Yep.
And it's a show I would love to do. There's so many.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do things that not only entertain but inspire, make people think. You know, we did a production of Ragtime last season, which was just probably one of the best shows we have ever done.
Yeah.
And it not only entertained people, but it touched people. It made people think about, you know, where we are as a country in the world of you know, racial inequality and, you know, all those kind of things. It's great I loved when we did The Color Purple. You know, what a great show, and that made a difference in the community. You know, there's so many things to think about. I'm hoping To Kill a Mockingbird it solidifies and comes through, because boy, what a great show that would be to have. So
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking for the community. You're thinking what's going to make a difference. And what better way to experience theater than by going to Riverside Center for the Performing Arts? Patrick, I could talk to you all day long because I love your stories. I'm having so much fun. But unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So maybe you can come back next week. I'd love to have you. But I do want to get to how people get their tickets for the shows coming up. So where can they go?
You can call the box office.
Okay.
It's 540-370-4300. Gosh, I know that number.
Wow, I'm impressed.
And you can go to riversidedt.com.
Okay.
That's the website. You can buy tickets online, and either or. Now, if you buy tickets online, then there is a service charge for that, because we do have to pay a cost for that service, online ticketing. But if you call the box office, there is no charge, service charge, or a lot of people like to go right into the box office themselves. So you can do that as well. But,
and that website is where everyone can find volunteer opportunities as well.
Yes.
All the news.
Everything is there with the nonprofit.
Perfect.
And all the opportunities will be there, and all the updates.
Awesome.
Everything Riverside will be there.
I love it. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a great conversation. I'm looking forward to the rest of this season for Riverside Center Performing Arts.
When you're there, now you have to come and say hi.
Of course I will. You may just find me up on stage at one point. I'm just saying.
Well,
I may have to make it.
That's all right. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Make sure to get your tickets, Wizard of Oz, right now.
Yeah, you don't want to miss Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't
and then,
wanna
of
miss
course, see yourself on stage for Love Letters.
There you go.
Excited.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that'll do it for In the Community this week. If you are a nonprofit and need to bring attention to your cause or organization, please reach out through this station's website, and we will see you next week.